I'll tell it once. One time because it deserves to be told, and then never again. Fair enough. Well, it doesn't really matter what you think. I mean, I care. I do. I want you to listen to this, to hear me out, but it's not really important how you feel about it. All in the end, it's happened now, and I don't know you from Adam. Or for Eve, for that matter. Sorry, I'm just trying to keep this. Yeah, anyway, is your drink okay? I mean, there's plenty over there on the counter, so feel free. The looser the better on this one, I figure. So bottoms up or whatever they say at the bar these days, I wouldn't know, but feel free. I mean, it comes with the room. No, I'm not a drinker. You guessed that though, right? I mean, yeah, there's nothing but water here. Never was, but when I saw you down in the lounge, I could tell that you enjoyed the stuff. What is it you got there? It's like some kind of red wine, is it? I mean, I don't, I mean, well, look, just take it. All that's going to go to waste if you don't. Well, I mean, the next person will drink it, but, I hate to waste things. So anyway, when I spotted you alone, like you were, and going through that bottle, I figured you'd be a great listener and that you wouldn't mind if I told you all this, and if I'm lucky, by tomorrow you won't even remember it. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, you're okay. You're comfortable, right? Good. So, where should I begin? Let me see. All right, I never used to travel. Pretty much stayed in our branch office, did things over the phone, handled it all that way, But I never cared for driving all the time, meeting clients, that end of things. I mean, I did it, whenever I first started, low man on the pole and whatever, but once I got the old MBA, the foot in the door and all that, I stuck to the desk as much as I could. I like it, that office. I don't know, I could feel the atmosphere. Faxes coming in, people, zipping around, emergency strategy sessions and all that. Just, I don't know. It's like being a kid again. I mean, it's like playing at war, or that type of thing. Look, I don't mean exactly like that, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, it's a whole different thing out there. I have to tell you, I mean, the world of business, it is. All that dog eat dog jungle out there stuff has become pretty cliche, but it's true. I mean, you can see what guys love about. Oh, I don't mean just guys. There's plenty of women in the field too, But I mean, guys, you know how it's used these days. I mean, it's all encompassing, right? It's very high stakes, lots of cash floating around you, and the pressure's real. Well, it's real hot, day in, day out. Seriously, it is. I mean, we may play it like a game sometimes, but believe me, a day doesn't go by in this business when you're not out for someone else's blood. But hey, you know what I'm talking about. You're in what, like sales, right? I mean, you just look like, it's a compliment. You just look like you could sell things if you wanted to. Okay. My point here, okay, it's just a stressful situation, I'm paid for it. I mean, I'm not complaining, but I just wanted to, I don't know, lead on the right way with this. I'm not making excuses. I'm not. Looks like I'm losing you. Las Vegas isn't that far. It must be getting late. Okay, I'm gonna try and be brief. Yeah, things started to take a bit of a turn for us last year. Well, I guess 2 years ago. My wife and me, the family, we lost a child, newborn. Well, 5 months old, baby, just like that. It just happened. I was off that day. It was a Friday, I think, and Deborah, that's my wife, Deb, she was out. Her mother was staying with us, and they were over at a Safeway getting some milk. Deb put the baby down. Emma, we named her, and she put Emma in our bed because that's where she'd been sleeping for the past few months. We always thought that was a good bonding thing. I'd read it somewhere, she heard it at church, something like that. Anyway, so that's what she did. She tucks her in, out they went, and see, I was just gonna lie down with her. Excuse me, I really was. But I just kind of went back to the living room for a second, just watch a little Wheel of Fortune or something, and 5 minutes a week to myself, and I fell off to sleep right there, and there on the love seat, by the window. Deb's mom, Emma's grandma, found her maybe half an hour later. She smothered herself in the sheets. I don't know, beneath the weight of the old comforter or whatever it was. This big old maroon and gold thing we got as a wedding gift. It was huge, and she suffocated. That's as plain as you can tell it. Little thing. I mean, she died in her bed, tangling herself with the blankets. The police, they had to come. They do for any kind of infant death. That's what the officer said. I'd gotten hold of myself by that time. I'm still crying, but Deb was, she was just, she was sitting there next to me, staring off, and this person, a detective, I suppose, was asking us questions and standing there and firing off this series of questions, standard procedure, he assured us, but still. Okay, what bothered him? No, puzzled. He said, it never came right out and said what bothered him, but you could see by the way he didn't understand how the baby could get so far down. Oh, I'm losing you. Okay, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. It seemed to him that the baby, that young and small, she was such a small thing. She was too far down, on the foot of the bed, and turned, and something about that seemed to be eating at him. I didn't understand what he was getting at. I mean, the way he kept going back and forth over the events and times and all that. Where were you standing, and approximately how long were you, blah, 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 blah. And I mean, my God, we're sitting there on the edge of the sofa. I mean, the bed my daughter has just died in, and I can see through an open back door down to the hallway, and this man is pacing, and he's sucking on the chewed cap of a ballpoint pen and asking me quietly, did you check on her? What's he getting at? Anyway, that's a no-win, isn't it? Think about it. If I didn't check on her, right, I'm not a good father. Not anything he can say about it, but I carry around the guilt, maybe I could have prevented it, right? And if I did go in there, if I had done what I was supposed to do, had planned on doing the nap, then maybe, she'd be alive. Maybe. And for just a second, just the briefest of moments, I catch Deb looking over at me as if this is the first time the thoughts come to her as well. This possibility, the whole incident hangs there, probably just 2 or 3 seconds altogether, and it just lays this I don't know, there's this thing in the air, all of us, this shadow of a doubt. Now, that's another cliche for you, isn't it? It hangs there until I say, very matter-of-factly, no, I didn't mean to. And off he goes and says, fine, stops me cold, and he goes off into another tangent. She took my hand with her. Deb did, just after that. She scooped it up in her tiny fingers and just held it there. all the rest of the afternoon, even after the police were gone, as we sat there into the evening with her mother and our two children home from school and having heard it all, not just talking, but just sitting and watching the darkness crowd into the room. She held my hand, and somehow, because of that, I felt at peace. Anyway, the detective said that he was nearly done, just one or two more items, which she grabbed hold of my hand, and like she did, and when she did that, during this, I can see guys passing, I mean people, okay, I can see these people passing in front of the doorway. Deb was just off to the side enough to miss it, thank heavens. Tweezers all out, picking up scraps of, paper, whatever, snap of flashbulb, some muffled talk about an upcoming jazz game. I'm starting to feel queasy. The heat of the room, maybe, and sitting there at this almost like unbearable thing just unfolds on us. And, we'd hardly had a moment to each other, Deborah and myself, to cry. And, and this happens. This Dragnet episode just takes place right in our living room. And I start to feel sick. I did. I hide it pretty well, but I felt it all the same. Finally, they were gone. And I looked around, and the front door slammed shut. It was empty, and the house, they'd taken Emma out with them, the coroner, maybe half an hour later, wrapped up in a little Ziploc bag or something. Something like I carry my pressed shirts in when I travel. I know I said I don't like to go out on the road. I didn't used to anyway, but, well, just let me finish. I think we ordered pizza out that night. That's really weird. But Deborah just couldn't stand over the stove right then, so, we had a pizza. Yeah, one from Sbarro's over at the mall. And we had pizza, Deb holding my hand under the table the whole time, all through the silence. And we went to bed right after. Phone woke me at about 11:30, and I almost had to pry Deborah's fingers off of mine to get it, but I was on about by the third, maybe the fourth ring. It was him, the police detective, and very apologetic, about calling so late and the whole process and the usual stuff like that, you'd see on any of those cop programs on TV. We don't watch them much. Maybe the kids do when we're not around, but they're not supposed to. But the kind I mean. He was like, it had all come out fine, he said, ruled, natural causes after a few tests had been run, and he just wanted to let us know if there's anything he could do, he'd be glad to. But no, I hung up the phone without him finishing. He put us through enough of that day, on a day like that, on a day no parent should ever have to face, and to have those people just do that. So I hung up the receiver, and I rolled back to Deborah, and I just held her at first, putting my hand back in place and squeezing her fingers a bit. But it woke her. She woke up, and we whispered to each other, talking under the sheets like two school children about things we hadn't mentioned in years. We were under the sheets just then, because from that night on, no, Deb and I could not sleep under a comforter again. It's probably odd, isn't it? Well, maybe not, but we couldn't. Middle of winter, kids will be all off on ski trips, and Deborah and I will be huddled under just the sheets to this day. Anyhow, talking must have gone on for hours, a few at least, and then the kissing, and finally, you don't need to know the details. We did all that you'd imagine you might do on a night like that, a night, where your entire universe has been changed forever. I don't know, but that may have been the night that Joe was, that's our youngest, Joseph. Yeah, the Bible. And I have a brother of that exact same name, so. But Joe came almost exactly 9 months later, and he's a great boy. He really is. And over time, and with the new child, life goes on. It does. And it's strange to say that, because I'd never believe it from hearing some other person say it. I mean, if I'd heard that, I would never buy it because of the loss. And, I feel everybody is just smiling and pretending to be all understanding. That they really think you're just like some Chinese family getting rid of the daughter to get a son. And just crazy things like that run through my head. But then it happens to you, and it's true. You just go on. You do. I mean, you thank your Heavenly Father for giving you strength to stand up to his trials and figure there must be a plan behind it all, a reason for so much pain, and you go on. That's what we did. We went on. And more than that, a lot more. Let me fill your glass over there. Oh, you're not gonna. Well, okay. If you're fine, you're fine. So, I've gotten off the path here somehow. Look. Are you sure you got time for this? Well, okay. Look, there's not much left to tell anyhow. So finish off the drink and I'll be done. I promise. All right. There was a problem. That's what had started all of this. Excuse me. I mean, sorry about that. Originally, this problem had what started it all, in motion, a problem at work. We've been taking over recently. I mean, no big deal in theory, happened all the time during the 80s. Somebody else takes over, you lose a few of the stragglers, guys who couldn't keep up. Oh, and I do mean guys, as in everybody, okay? All people here. That's what I mean when I say guys. Because, it was usually women at that point. Not always, but a lot of the time. I mean, takeovers were an excellent way to get rid of things back in order. And that's not just me talking, There's definitely an order to things in business. And the old boys at the top, the guys you never see, I mean, well, you do. I mean, you see their pictures in the hallway, like they like things the way they've always been. So that's when a bunch of these women with their MBAs and their affirmative action nonsense would get the boot. Nothing personal about it. At least I never felt there was. Just getting everything back to the way it was supposed to be. But not this time. No. This time it was going to happen. And nobody could tell which way things would end up. Everybody at my level, that mid-management type of thing, was pretty vulnerable. It came down that we could count on 4 of us from the Salt Lake office being let go. That's where I work. I mean, I commuted in from Orem every day because the standard of living that area afforded us, and it would just be up to fate as to who got the axe. Another cliche, right? Yeah. Well, I'm full of them. Full of it. One of the two. I can't be sure anymore. Anyways, that was the story. 4 of us were going to go. 3 of which I and everyone else had a pretty good idea of. 3 that should have gone a long time ago. But that last spot, that last one, the tough call. There was me, who'd been steady and strong and average. Just average or slightly above. Someone who they could count on. Good sense of humor, everything like that for the past 7 years. Well liked, and I liked everyone, or most everyone. I mean, there was this woman a few years younger than me, and had come during a wave of new hires about 4 years back. I mean, just plain vicious. And I mean, talk about cliches and all that. I mean, she was a walking one. This business suit and this blunt haircut thing going. I mean, I can't even remember seeing her smile. You know what I'm saying, but she knew her stuff. I knew it. We all did. So did she, and she reveled in it. The sales, the numbers, the whole game. We'd gotten off badly. Actually, I made a mistake once. A board meeting where I grouped her in with you guys oughta, meaning that side of the table, and she called me out on it. First meeting, maybe the second she'd been to, and she nails me out loud about my attitude, my limited chauvinist lexicon, and all this other just like crap that she just fired off. walked out of the room in silence, and me and some other guys laughed it off over lunch. But I caught one or two of the other women smiling to themselves as the meeting broke up. Just a slight thing, but I caught it. And we always felt one step behind her. And after that, and like she made it her job to one-up me from that moment on. But she was one. Me and her, because of the short time she'd been there, and a couple of other folks that had about the same seniority that I did. And that's what hung over our heads, each of us, day after day, as we'd go into work. It was coming. We all knew that it was going to happen, and all we could do was look at each other as we sat there waiting. And then, of course, that's when I got the call. Just before Deb had gone to Safeway. I took it in the den because it was coming from Chicago. A friend of mine, the home office, a guy from school, actually, with a tip. I mean, a tip that he, heard that day, and he wanted to call me about it. And it was me. I mean, I was the one that would make up the four, and he was so sorry and all that. He is a really good guy. I see him whenever I'm in Chicago. We were these really big jokers when we were in school. And, in the dorms together. And so he was just doing what any guy would do. He said, letting me hear it from a friendly voice and giving me a jump the weekend anyway, just before, he hung up and said again, it was just what was going around, but he thought that I should know. Couldn't even look at Deb that day. As she was going out of the van, she called out to me, told me to crawl in and get a little snooze before the kids got home, and they'd be right back. But I just waved to her. Couldn't look, not right then. Just waved my hand. Was too busy looking around the house and our things. I mean, all the things that we'd gathered in 10 years. Just all of it. What was I going to do? I mean, how could I possibly keep it all myself? What was I going to do? The lifestyle we'd made for ourselves, without my seniority, the benefit package, jobs all over being tight like they are, it wouldn't be possible. Okay, it was like the moment in the film Kramer versus Kramer, right? When he decides he's got to keep that job that day, I felt like that. I keep bringing up movies and TV, but look, I don't mean to, because we really don't watch all that much, but there is some good programming out there, and especially moving one, I thought. The way he fought that battle with his wife and kid and child, but I'm just standing there, just taking in the VCR on our big screen TV and one of the kids' bikes, and I can see through the front window the Pathfinder and Wheel of Fortune's blasting on TV in the family room. All these thoughts are swimming around my head, and I hear it. I wasn't asleep. Couldn't have been. I mean, I tried to believe it, make myself believe it too, but I wasn't, or I never would have heard her. The baby, Emma, in the other room, as I was standing there, I heard her cry from the inside of the bedroom. I did. Now, when I got to the doorway, she was already under the blankets. She was, I swear, under them and just fighting to get out. Just reflexes, I guess, because she wasn't big enough to do anything about it. I mean, she just started to crawl a few weeks before that, and she was tiny for her age. The doctors said that, but she'd managed to get herself down in the comforter. I rushed in there to the edge of the carpet at the bedroom door, and then I don't know. Something stopped me. Just stopped me, like some invisible force had reached out and took hold of the back of my shirt, yanked me to a halt, and I looked at her again, this little yelp coming from her, and she blundered around in there, and it almost looked like when you're a puppy as a kid, or the family cat, would get put under the blankets for a laugh. It was like that, almost this little mound wandering around in there. It was nearly absurd to walk in on something like this. I mean, you just could never be ready for a thing like that. Then because of that, the specific part of it, the unreality, I was able to make a decision. This is very hard. Anyway, I remembered, I said I hate to waste things. You remember when I told, yeah. So when I looked at it, I mean, rationally, for even a half second there in the hallway, I realized that's what this was, an opportunity, and I wasn't going to waste it. So, okay, I'm just going to say this because I went into the room and stood there by the bed. I stood there and pulled up the comforter by one corner, and I saw her then. Her fine sandy hair and her... Well, I just coaxed her down a bit, down a little bit further with the edge of my foot. I turned her a touch and down, and then I dropped the covers and I walked out. There was one last sound that Emma made. You could barely hear it, but I just kept walking back to the love seat there in the family room and laid down and made myself go to sleep. I put a pillow over my head so I couldn't hear and drifted off. Okay, the point I want to make, though, is that it didn't have to happen that way. Like, I took the risk, this calculated risk for my family, that this whole episode would play out in our favor and give me that edge at work. Maybe things would be okay, or they'd change their minds because of, but it didn't have to be like that. If Deb had just hurried a bit, or if she hadn't, stopped to look through People magazine, or her mother hadn't gone next door to fill a prescription, then who knows? Maybe they would have got back in time, and Emma would still be... that sounds strange, doesn't it? That way of thinking. But all I'm saying is it was fate that took her. Just the whimsy of a lingering red light, or a prolonged chat with one of our neighbors in the produce aisle, or if I hadn't heard her cry out in the first place, I could have gotten into bed there beside her, and I was planning to. I might have fallen asleep and never even heard her then. Who knows? Probably would have happened anyway, and it did happen. Excuse me again. But look, you go on. Like I said before, you just go on. I kept my job. I did. And guess who was the one? After all that, guess who got it right between the eyes? Oh, God. Another cliche. I know, and boy, oh boy, what a great one it was. I even walked her to the elevator the day she left, her and the other three. This was several months after all the other... I was right behind them with the so long and we'll miss you. And right then it came to me with my friends standing around, and that little... Well, she wasn't looking so strong anymore. There in the open car, this box of stuff in her hands, but the doors were closing, and I said to them all, but staring straight at her, I said, "You guys just take care now." Just like that. And then they slid shut. It's just like the ending. Kramer at the end. The doors did... Isn't that funny? I never thought of that before. I said that, and we laughed all through lunch, the guys and me. I was at a seminar, a big yearly thing the company put on. This one was in Boston 6 months back. My friend from Chicago flew in. Okay, so after the morning session, just in passing as we were both in the restroom, at one point he said something to me, my friend, I guess, trying to lighten things up a little. He mentioned work and about the layoffs and how glad I must have finally been to have gotten rid of who, and And then he said, "Boy, I really had you going that Friday, didn't I?" I turned to him, and then the whole picture was clear to me. I mean, right then, it was clear as a look into the future what he'd done, what we'd always used to do to each other. See, he'd heard the truth, and the real truth of what was coming, and he couldn't let me go without a little razzing, So he'd give me the call, let me stew about it over the weekend. He was gonna buzz me back Monday morning with the truth, but by then, yeah, I mean, he got me all right. Yeah, he got me good, just like the old days. So I travel now, same pay and everything, a little better actually, but I consult for regional branches, even nationally sometimes, and it keeps me going. Deb and I are just fine. Joe's getting huge. I mean, he really is. I would even show you a picture of him, but I don't have any on me. But I find I like the driving these days. It gives me a lot of time to just drive and think about it. I usually don't even get a room. I got this place because I'm here for a few days, but normally I'd have everything in the trunk and just do it that way. It's funny how things end up, isn't it? I mean, and of course I can't tell Deb, it'd kill her. Kill us, does it kill a family? I mean, that's obvious, right? Can't tell anyone in the church or the police, or of course. So I chose you. I saw you tonight as I was walking around in the lobby, and I just chose you. So there it is. Finished. Oh, you probably, yeah, it's late. Take care of yourself, and thanks. Again, seriously, you've been very... Do you have kids? No? Well, when you do, you be good to them, okay? There's nothing like them in the world. Believe me. Why don't you go out ahead and shut the light off there on your way out, if you would. I'm just going to sit here a bit. I'll be fine. You go ahead, really. It's almost time for a last call, so you should... I'll be fine. Really. I will. Good night.